Evo, welcome. Samantha, Rob, how are you guys?
Hey, Chris, how are you?
Hi, Chris.
I'm great. Looking forward to this episode. Rob, I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
My
I know a
pleasure.
lot of,
Looking forward to it.
yeah, we've got a few members already watching, and Filmation's big with the group, and so we really, many of us really appreciate you being with us today. And for me, it's good to talk to you again. I know we talk sometimes, and I've been over there visiting you guys before, and so it's just good to reconnect there too.
So let's just get right into it, huh? Rob, thank you so
We
much.
sure can. Samantha, I'm glad you're able to get over there too. It's nice to.
This is so cool. They live so close, Why
Yeah,
not?
this is some of the advantage of one of us being on each side of the country. We can meet up with different people in different locations, and now you get to. Seems like I always get to, but so I'm glad you're able to meet up with Rob. I know you enjoy being with him, and so yeah, we'll have a good episode, I think.
I hope so. Well, what do you think? Let's go.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, Rob. This is He-Man's 40th anniversary.
Yes.
What does that mean to you? And do you have any plans for this year?
Well, 40 years. It's really hard to get my mind wrapped around that. September 1983 is when He-Man premiered. We started working on it at the beginning of 83. I came in on staff at March of 83. So, yeah, it's 40 years. Never did we anticipate that we'd be still talking about He-Man and the Master of the Universe 40 years later.
So great.
So, yeah, it's still hard for me to get my head wrapped around it. That there's still interest and excitement and enthusiasm over the characters and the stories. So it's just still amazes me.
It's great.
Now, as far as plans, this event today is part of that. I'm here at Tall Man Comics doing signings of scripts and storyboards and artwork that I've done. I'll be at another comic book and toy store next week in our hometown of Owensboro. And one of the things I do is I paint pops for, I put Filmation style character art on the Funko Pop boxes. And you have, like, here's one for Skeletor.
You guys see that?
Yeah, that's really cool.
And then we have one for Leech.
This one's the best.
No, this one's the best.
You knew he would say that.
Battle of the Green Guys.
Yeah.
That's Spartacus says hello to Rob and to us, Sam. Which reminds me, yeah, you guys just keep asking questions. It's your chance to talk with Rob and us, and yeah. So shoot comments and questions. I'm kind of watching them over here on the computer, and yeah. All right, keep going. I guess.
One other thing, I will be at the Minnesota Con in Minneapolis the first weekend of June. And we're working on a convention in Owensboro, Kentucky in October. So,
check that out, guys.
We'll have to come visit.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Rob, Filmation animation, obviously, was pre-digital. Cells and drawings and storyboards and all that. Can you share with us what the animation process looked like back then versus now?
Absolutely different. Everything was hand done. You had to, characters were drawn on paper. We had, well, we'll start with the written word. The scripts are written on typewriters, not on word processors, but on typewriters, on paper. If you ever see an early draft, it's all marked up with red pen and Scotch tape. If you only change one line, didn't want to type the whole page, you cut out a piece of type and you just put it on the thing. So we had that. Then the storyboards were hand drawn on 8.5 by 11 paper with 9 panels on the page. They're just really small, and we had to draw them that size, which is why I have trifocals now. Very The storyboard was the blueprint for production, and The layouts were done full size on paper. Animators drew pencil on paper. Then the paper was transferred to plastic cells with a Xerox process, and then they were hand painted. No computers, no digital anything, just all physical media, hand done, and the backgrounds were painted on heavy cardstock with acrylic paint, and then they were shot on an animation camera stand with a movie camera, 35 millimeter movie camera, shooting down onto the artwork with lights on the side. And it was done one frame of film at a time, 24 frames a second.
Wow.
So yeah, there was no computers involved until Brave Star. We started getting to a little bit of computer work.
So just
yeah,
that's awesome.
Hey Rob, this is Tom Cook says hi.
Hello, Tom. Tom is going to be at the Minnesota Con in Minneapolis when I'm there. So we'll reconnect then.
Oh, that would be great. So you said this would be Filmation's 40th. Do some of you guys have any plans to do anything or get together or?
Not that I know, but actually just Tom and I so far. The thing is that everybody's kind of scattered. So unless a convention or some venue pulls us together, probably not going to be getting together ourselves.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So back to the Filmation, you kind of alluded to it, and I like the history of that because until I got really, when I started visiting the warehouse and I started getting into the history of things, which I just love the history, I just wasn't aware. And when you see, it makes sense why there's so many, stock sequences that were reused or copies of somebody's head that's posted on top of a pencil drawing, just because of that process. So back then, when a mistake needed correcting, or maybe when a change was requested, that was a significant thing to do in terms of the time involved sometimes. And
yes,
we're talking. Sorry. We're talking pencils and paint and paper, and computers weren't a part of that process 40 years ago. So these shortcuts actually, I don't look at them as shortcuts. They're more necessity back then.
Yes, I'd say the single biggest contribution computers made was the undo function. There was no undo in paper or cells. We had checking departments. Their job was to examine everything to make sure there was no mistakes, because if we tried to catch it in the paper phase, because if we could catch it there, then those could be redrawn, and that was less expensive than catching it at the painted cell stage. Because if there was a mistake there, then the cells are scrapped, the paper was scrapped to go back to the drawing board. It has to be drawn and then painted. If it was caught at the film stage, in the film edit stage, it was very expensive to redo it all. So we had people whose only job was to examine every piece of artwork to make sure it works.
Wow.
As you can imagine, in painting, if you had maybe different colored buttons and someone forgot to paint a button, throw it away, do it all over again to make sure that next, otherwise it flashed.
So they wouldn't wash the cell, they would just completely...
No, they scrap the cell, take the drawing. Now, if it was a painting error, they would take the drawing, put it on transfer it to a cell, and repaint the entire cell, even if it was one little thing. Unless they could find some way to fudge it. If it was a little tiny dot of something, they might be able to just put a little dot of color on there, scrape it off at the exact time. But yeah, it was a nightmare.
Samantha, before you switch gears with your question,
Sure.
Hubby says hi.
Who?
Your husband.
Oh, hi, Sam. Hi, honey.
And Spartacus has a great question here for you, Rob. If you can read this. If not, I can read it.
Yeah, I can.
It's a fine print on the side. Would
love to hear Rob's thoughts about the characters Filmation developed rather than Mattel. For example, I think Orko was created by Filmation. How did that process work inside of Filmation? I'm assuming Mattel then bought the rights to those characters to make the toys? How does that process work?
Oh yeah, good question.
Well, we needed to have a bit of a comic relief character. Also, we had a range of animators, some that could do superheroes and realistic people very well, and others that were very much funny animal, cartoony things. And they weren't that good at doing realistic people. So we didn't want to lay them off. We would always have some sort of funny character that was easier for those artists to work on. And Orko was one of them. His original name was Gorko. But if they put a big G on his chest, we couldn't flop the artwork because then the G would be backwards. But an O, you can flop it backwards and forwards and no problem. So that was the reason for that. The relationship with Mattel was rather unique. They didn't want to use any of our characters that we designed because then they would have to pay Filmation a license fee. It only was because of demand by the fans and the customers of Mattel. They wanted an Orko toy, and eventually they had to make an Orko toy, and Filmation reaped the benefit of it.
There you go.
But that's why they didn't create a lot of the other characters, Granomir and all the others. They did, that came much later. But during the run of the series, they wanted to sell their toys. They didn't want to pay anybody else. They wanted to collect license fees that they didn't want to pay them.
Sure.
So that is why it took a long time for Orko and other characters to even show up.
Imagine if they would have all those other toys.
Yeah, and it was an interesting relationship, and we didn't put our nose into their toy business, and we said, you leave us alone with the stories. We'll try to use as many characters that make sense, and the vehicles that make sense. And that's why some characters were only on for a couple of episodes, and others were in there for the whole series.
Like Mossman?
Yep. I think, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think I wrote the first episode that Mossman appeared in. That was
Did you know that?
The Ancient Mirror of Avatar.
Wow.
I think I did know that, yes.
And so that was interesting. So I got to establish his character.
Him and Granomir. All these amazing characters.
So continuation on that Orko question, Rob. Do you recall which animators specifically came up with Orko, or was it a team effort?
Everything was very much collaborative. We had character designer. We had a whole department that was just, their job was to design the characters. They weren't animators. They weren't, story guys. They were character designers. And different individuals would design certain characters. There were some artists that were very good at female characters, at women, and others that were very good at animals or horses or things like that. And I don't remember who had the assignment to come up with Orko, so I couldn't tell you who it was, but it would have been a single person, yet it would have to go through the approval process, through the producers, and through ultimately Lou Steimer had to approve it. Who did the voice of Orko.
Wow. Wonder who it is.
So later on, they started signing their names. They started putting their names, the character designed by, and on some of the model sheets, later model sheets, you could actually see the names of the model designers.
That's cool.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Go ahead, Sam.
Okay, just moving on. What is your take on the enduring interest that we still see today in He-Man?
Well, that goes back to my first response about being amazed that we're still talking about it.
It's awesome.
I couldn't believe it. When I first discovered the fans out there, I was blown away. When I grew up, the cartoons I had in the 60s, we liked them. We were big fans of them. But, that was then. When he grew up, got interested in other things. I hadn't seen that kind of interest in a cartoon property like there is with He-Man and all the Masters and She-Ra and all those characters. that has endured. That it constantly amazes me.
Why do you think that is? What is it? What is it that we all like so much about it?
Well, it seems to me that it hit a generation with the kind of values and stories and I guess a greater depth, almost a mythology, if you will, that resonated with the kids of that age. And having the toys and the stories at the same time just reinforced each other.
Yeah.
And the other thing was that we tried to tell stories that had at least some value, some what Lou Scheimer liked to call pro-social value, that they had good things to say, not just being random action, random entertainment, but also had some purpose to them. And I think that resonated with a lot of people.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
I every time I meet a fan, the most common thing it says is, "Thank you for making my childhood."
Oh.
And I'm like, "You're welcome." Me and 400 of my closest friends.
Oh my. Let's see.
This is Krister saying hi. Hi, Krister. Thanks for joining.
Hey, Krister. He's a great guy. Why did Mattel choose Filmation for the Masters cartoon? How much say did they have in it? Making sure Filmation included or added certain characters, vehicles, etc. in various episodes.
Well, here's the thing. They had come up with this barbarian toy character. Mark Taylor did the original designs. And initially, they were going to market it as a product to Conan the Barbarian, the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, until they found out that it was R-rated and not kid-friendly.
Right.
So they were looking for some other way to promote their toy line. In 1981, Filmation had a series called Black Star, and Ruby Spears had a barbarian series called Thundar the Barbarian.
Yes.
And Mattel watched both shows, and it just so happened they liked Black Star better. And they said, "We want that done for our toys." So in 1982, they got together with Filmation, and talks were done, and he came up with a way to make this work. Now, there was one thing, though, that we were very sensitive about. We didn't want to be just known as a 30-minute commercial for toys. And so we said, look, here's what we're going to do. This was Lou Scheimer. He dictated the terms in the negotiations. He said, "We don't know about toys. We won't tell you how to make toys or what to do with them. We are an animation company. We are an entertainment company. We won't tell you what to do with your toys. You don't tell us how to make cartoons. We will accommodate as much as makes sense. We'll use as many characters and as many vehicles and whatever that make story sense. And, you know, if something doesn't make sense, we're not going to use it. That's just the way it is." Mattel didn't like that, but they said, "Okay, let's do it." And that's how we went about it. We had to redesign the characters because the toys were very complicated. And the more details and lines that are on a character, the harder it is to animate them. It's more work. We call it line mileage. There's too many lines to draw. So they had to simplify some of it. But still, like Man-at-Arms is rather complicated. He's got a lot of things going on. So, but that was basically the relationship with Mattel is, we'll try to accommodate you, but you don't have script approval. And I'll let you know, Hasbro had script approval on G.I. Joe.
Oh.
And I had friends that worked on G.I. Joe, and they told me horror stories where they said, "We got to get G.I. Joe from point A to point B, but we have to use 3 vehicles to get them there."
Mm-hmm.
And whenever we have the people, we want the entire toy line on the screen as much as possible. So that's why you have so many group shots. And there would be script changes that made no story sense, but they were commercials.
Oh, I never knew. That's cool.
So I was very thankful for what Lou had set up with Mattel that gave us control over the content of our cartoons.
There you go. That's an awesome little tidbit.
All right, Christopher and his Trapjaw, he wants to know, Rob, Trapjaw is the #1 guy on Team Skeletor, yes or no? The answer is no.
The answer is yes.
Well, let's see. He thinks so.
Yeah, he does.
B-Span would have to differ, and we know Evelyn has an inside track with Skeletor, so they were all competitors.
Krister.
Yes, they were. Oh man. Thomas Cook, that's Tom saying it with pencil mileage. Yeah, I bet. You guys have gone through a few pencils in your lifetime, I'm sure, huh?
Yes. The favorite pencil of the animators were Blackwing black pencils. And
Blackwing
they
black,
don't make them anymore, and people will try and find them on eBay.
Do they find them?
Have you looked?
I haven't. I prefer the color erase blue pencil. That's what I used, and but I have animator friends who will post on Facebook. I found another box.
I found some.
That's great. Oh man.
We had these little pencil extenders where your pencil nub got too small for your hand to hold it. We had these extender clamps,
you have to hold it,
so you could hold it till it got down to next to nothing. That's how precious they were.
They love them. What are they called? What are they called? Blackwing?
Blackwing pencils, and I don't remember there was probably a number with it, but that was the favorite pencil. Tom Cook probably knows better.
Maybe he can answer that question, Tom. All right, Rob. Tell us more about the storyboarding process back then. I think it would have been a bit of a challenge for a show with a lot of action, trying to cram all that action into those tiny little boxes, right? So trying to capture scenes in those little storyboard boxes. What were some of the methods that were created or that you used that allowed you to get that kind of detail into a busy storyboard?
Well, we had a lot of shorthand. I mean, we draw things at one of the things I was told that, look, if you want to draw, go to layout. They just want to get the camera angles, get the compositions and everything in those boards. Now, there are some times when the setup was complicated enough, and what I would do is I had a larger panel that I would draw that was about this big. And then I'd go to my Xerox machine and I'd shrink it down and paste it in. I wouldn't do that too much, or I'd get in trouble for spending too much time doing the job. We had limitations as to how long we could spend doing these boards, but we had to provide. It couldn't be like a comic book where you have one panel that kind of describes a whole bunch of things. You had to show a beginning, a middle, and an end to the sequence. He-Man runs in the scene, picks up a rock, throws it out, runs out of the scene. All those had. You couldn't just have him holding a rock and just saying he ran into scene and picked up this rock. We had to draw each of those poses.
I bet that was tedious.
Animation in itself is a tedious medium. You have to be somewhat OCD in order to be able to do it well.
Patient.
Extremely patient. And the thing with the storyboard is, and I really loved doing storyboards because it, by its nature, it is visual storytelling. You get a written script that'll just describe the action. It'll have the character's line of dialogue, but it's the storyboard artist that envisions it, puts it down in these small panels. Okay, is it a close-up? Is it two people standing there where you can see them head to foot? Are you looking over someone's shoulder? All those camera angles are figured out in the storyboard stage. And after the board is done, the director will look over it and, either approve it or make changes and so on. But that storyboard is a blueprint for the rest of the studio. It gets split up because different animators will work on different scenes and different background artists work on different backgrounds. But the storyboard is what holds it all together. That is the blueprint.
The meat and potatoes.
Yes.
That's awesome. Let's see.
All right, I'm going to jump back to comments real quick, Sam.
Sure.
This is Tom's comment again. Animators use blue pencil. Assistants used black pencil for cleanup and in-betweens.
All right.
There you go.
All right, and then
Thanks,
Krister has a nice question here. What's your main inspiration or hero growing up as an artist? Who or what?
That's a good question.
Well, I was a DC guy. I loved Superman comics and Justice League and all those. I was a Johnny Quest kid. I loved the original Johnny Quest animated series that was in the 1960s. And on live action side, it was Lost in Space, Star Trek, and Batman. So that gives you a bit of rundown of where I came from.
That's great.
That is awesome.
Then,
that's all things I love.
Yep. Tom says Spider-Man for me. One more question here from Spartacus. Rob, what was your favorite thing about working in Filmation? In your opinion, what were the best and most challenging things about working there?
Oh, the best was that everything was done under one roof. We hadn't shipped things overseas. So the animators were there, the cell painters were there, the cameramen were there, background painters were there, and I would sometimes on coffee breaks, we'd get a short break in the morning and one in the afternoon, and I would, while others went out to smoke, I would go down to the background department and talk to the background painters who were painting these beautiful panoramas. I'd go down to the camera department. I say down because I was on the second floor and they were on the first floor. I went to the camera department and watch them shoot scenes. They'd have, here's the background here, and they'd pick up the next cell, place it down. A glass platen would come down. You'd hit the foot pedal, which would cause the camera to take a frame. You'd lift the glass, take that cell off, get the next cell. So here's the next little movement. Tedious, very tedious. But I'd also ask, I'd have ideas. I wanted to do something, and it was going to take a camera move to make it work. So rather than trying to figure it out myself, I'd go talk to the cameraman who actually had to shoot it. I said, look, this is what I want to do. I've got a stock scene where this, sky sled comes right at camera, but I want it to look like it's turning. And I said, okay, well, what we can do is if you indicate on the board to rotate the camera, the director will put that in the exposure sheet, and then I'll know to rotate the camera. So instead of having to draw the sky sled doing this, we just turned the camera and it did a little spiral.
So that was you.
That was
Whenever you see that, that's you.
Well, that's first. We tended to copy each other. We would copy and paste and say, "Oh, how did you do that?" Well, I did it this way, and the other storyboard artist would add that to his
How cool
stuff. So that was the other thing is we were not in our own little silos. We would communicate back and forth, and I would go to the storyboard artist across the hall and said, "Look, my script calls for Superman to pick up this thing and pitch it." Did I see Superman?
Yes.
He-Man, forgive me. He-Man needs to pick up this thing and throw it. Did you do anything like that? He goes, "Oh yeah, I had He-Man pick up this." And I look at his artwork. I said, "Can I use that?" So I take his, Xerox it, put a nice little piece of paper over it, and draw my thing that he had to do. So instead of a rock, it's a tree trunk. And we would do that and work off each other that way. And it was just, it was a family atmosphere. It was very, we worked with the same people year after year, got to know everyone. And it was just a great environment for creativity and camaraderie. I loved working there.
You know, a lot of people that Chris and I have interviewed have said that to us, that everybody was together. It was, you know, you guys were united, and if nothing was overseas, and Lou took care of you guys. And
in 1982, the Cartoonist Union went on strike to protest over runaway production overseas. And, the union would picket each of the studios. Lou Scheimer, the head of Filmation, came out and picketed his own studio. He was all in support of keeping it domestic, keeping it here. And so he had no problem with the strike at all. He was all for it, and we loved him for it.
He was a fighter for you guys. That's awesome. Oh, that's great. Okay. Any more questions from Evo members?
Nope, not right now. Number 7 is you, Sam.
It is. We're going to talk about Granomir. Okay, Granomir is now among many of our favorite characters. You were able to storyboard both episodes in which he appears, The Dragon's Gift and The Return of Granomir. Were either of those episodes significant for you, and why?
Very, very significant. The Dragon's Gift was my very first He-Man storyboard. Oh. I started it in March of 1983, and it was my very first Larry DiTilio script. And Larry quickly became my favorite writer. And I was blessed to have 4 of his scripts to board in the first year. And so he came up with this character, Granomir, the oldest and wisest of dragons. And I was really excited to do a dragon character. Now, oftentimes we would not get the character designs. The model department would get the script the same time the storyboard would get the script. So I was starting to board it without having any designs of the characters. I loved the movie Dragon Slayer, which came out in 81, I think it was. And so I drew my Granomir to look like this fierce dragon. I was a bit disappointed when this pot-bellied, tiny winged thing with a Viking helmet came out. That was not my Granomir. But of course, my Granomir never made it to screen. So, when I had to do Return of Granomir, I had no excuse. I had the model designs, but in a passive aggressive way, I still drew them in my storyboard my way.
Oh my!
Which they ignored and used the models. But it was a good script, good character, and I was thrilled to get the repeat. And I was given that assignment because I had done the first one. So you know how to draw, and you do this. And so that turned out to be a joy. I believe there were other Granomir scripts that came later.
Really?
Yes. I think Joe Straczynski wrote one too. So I think there are more Granomir stories than those 2, maybe in second season.
Wouldn't that be cool to get a hold of those?
Yeah, it sure would.
Yeah.
Christopher says he's got to run. Just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you, Sir Rob, and for everything, and us too as admins for the show. So thank you, Christopher. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Chris,
here's one from Tom. Oh yeah, sorry. Thomas Cook again. Rob was one of the best and nicest guys in the studio. I'm sure you can tell by this interview.
Oh, thank you, Tom. Your check will be in the mail.
Yeah. Yeah, well, send me one too then, because I agree with you, Tom. I know Tom or Rob personally, and his wife too. They are really genuinely great people. So it's a pleasure to sit here with you today for sure.
Thank you.
Here's one more question, and I was going to ask you the same thing. You wouldn't happen to somewhere have a picture of your version of Granomir, would you? One you could share with us later, or
I will have to share. I'll tell you what. I will. It's going to be a week before I get back home, but I will find my Granomir, and I will post it on Evo for you.
Oh my gosh,
that'd be awesome.
So actually, I think I did. If you go to my website, I do have a whole web page just on Dragon's Gift, and I do have pictures there.
Okay.
Like right away.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great.
That's so cool.
All right, we're getting sidetracked. Is it my turn again?
Yes, you're going to show some stuff.
All right, cool. So I got a few things from my collection. I'm not going to hand show them. I already took pictures of them, so I'll pop them on the screen like the Grandemir there. Yeah, we'll link you for sure. Let's see, there's a couple other comments. Joined late, but that's such a thanks for being here. That's from Andrew Bowers. All right, so let me show a couple of things here, and maybe you can just explain a little bit about them to us. Some things that I've picked up from you even, which is wonderful. These are just a couple random drawings that you did later. This one's dated in maybe 06. I don't remember if you remember it.
Yes, I do.
And then also this one.
That one was a preliminary drawing for a commission, which I rendered in full color.
And that's your not favorite version of Grandemir there.
Yeah, well, no one knows my Grandemir, so I just did what is known.
How cool would it have been for them two to meet?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, the point of sharing those two pictures really was just to get to share that you still work, you still do animation, you still do commissions. You, your wife is a great author, and you, I believe, what'd you say, cover pages, and you do the maps inside those books. So you've done this for quite a long time.
And I try to keep my hand in.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. Now, I know people are going to want to see these. So what can you tell us about these?
Okay, now, right, that is a schematic of the Royal Palace, and that is actually done by Lorenzo Martinez, who was the head of background design in the layout department. And that has a breakdown of the different rooms of the palace and what they are.
Yep, and then there's the other one here too. This will be a breakdown of Grayskull.
Yes, that is a breakdown of Grayskull. That is what was my inspiration for my first script, Into the Abyss, because there's a description about a bottomless abyss around Castle Grayskull. And when I was griping about getting a couple of non-Larry DiTillio scripts that I didn't care for that much, Fistos Forest, and I was looking. I had this up on my wall in my studio, and I said, why don't we do any? We've got all this rich backstory on Castle Grayskull, on all kinds of things, and we're not doing that. So that's when I thought of an idea. What would happen if someone actually fell into the abyss and witnessed the power of Grayskull when He-Man transformed? And I want to see that.
I want to see it too.
So I came up with a story outline, and I pitched it to Arthur Nadell because I wanted Larry DiTillio to write it for me so I could board it and I'd have a good show to board. And Arthur said, well, Larry's busy. And he said, do you want to write it? I said, okay. And so during the day at the studio, I'm boarding this awful Fistos Forest. And at night on my little brother typewriter, I'm hammering out Into the Abyss.
Right here.
And there it is there.
There it is.
Now, in my original story, I had Skeletor trying to get into Grayskull. And he's the one in a conflict, in a battle, he knocks Teela down into the abyss. But he gains access to Grayskull. Well, when the sorceress finds out, she gets mad. And he quips my favorite line, which is, what are you, her mother? And she gets really mad and blasts him out to Snake Mountain with a healthy dose of amnesia. And he goes, what was I going to do today?
How cool.
I wanted to do that so badly, but Arthur came back and said, we have done so much of Skeletor trying to get a Grayskull. Let's do something else. So that went away, and I did another draft where she accidentally falls in. But actually some good things came out of that, because I got to explore Prince Adam a little bit more and their relationship. And that it led to some nice character stuff. There's no villain in that story, and what came as a pleasant surprise to me was how much that became a fan favorite.
It's everybody's almost. I mean, everybody loves that one. It's so amazing.
So that was so that piece of paper that he just showed you with the diagram of Castle Grayskull was the inspiration for me to do that story.
How cool is that?
No, it's very cool. There's a nice comment. This comment's from Oyvind, and I just want to say that I wish Mr. Lamb's version of the series would have been followed and used more frequently, especially for Skeletor. And Oyvind, that's I like that comment because that script that we just showed up is mine that I got from Rob, and Rob was kind enough to include that alternate storyline, if you want to call it that. And so, yeah, the more I read and the more I learn about alternate things, you know, along the way, makes you wonder and makes you want to see how it would have played out in that fashion versus what we're used to.
Well, we tried our best to get things in, and sometimes we got them in, and sometimes we were overruled, but we tried.
That's so neat.
Sure. What's your most recent property or project you've been working on? Sorry, another user comment. That one is.
Well, actually, it's been doing things for fans. I've been doing painting pops, as we showed you. I've been doing artwork commissions. Done. In fact, the latest yet to be seen commission I did for our good friend Samantha. She has not seen them yet.
I haven't seen them.
Oh no!
So I know how much you guys like to do openings.
I'm so nervous.
Live unboxing. Yep.
Samantha, this is for you.
Thank you. Okay, here we go.
There's 2 in there, so take out one at a time.
Oh my gosh, look. I love it. I'm sorry. Look.
Oh, that's right up your alley, the twins.
It is. It's...
All she said was, I'd like you to draw me the twins.
Oh, look at this. Oh my goodness.
So it wasn't good enough to do one pair of twins. She wanted 2 pairs of twins.
He said, well, which one, Sam? Which one? And I said, do them both.
I hope you don't mind that I threw in a bonus. So you got 2.5.
Oh my gosh. I'm on my instinct. Look at this.
That's pretty special, Sam.
This is beyond special. This is so, thank you. This is so great. I love them. Oh,
Get that folder out of the way.
Oh, I'm sorry. Look at these. Look at these, you guys. I'm going to show again.
Here, we'll hold them both up. You hold one, I'll hold one.
Look at this. This is phenomenal. Frame up. Yup. These are 110% framed up. I love these so much. Oh.
So that's the kind of thing I'm doing now.
Yeah. You probably just made her year, Rob.
Oh my God. These are so great. Okay. I'm okay. 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 Well, what do you think, Chris? We're about done.
I told you 45 minutes, and it's right, ding, 45 minutes, right on the nose. Half hour of power-ish.
Hour of ish.
Ish, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I saw them. Oh, boy. Okay.
All right, Sam, you enjoy your time there with Rob. Rob, thank you, and appreciate you guys both, and appreciate Sean and her books with my boys. You guys that watched, thanks for watching. You guys that watch later, appreciate it very much, and hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and we'll get out of here so you guys can. All right?
Till next time.
Till next time.